Okay, let's continue with the second text and the second task. Alright, so what's the first question we've got? What has caused a reduction in the fishing export industry in recent times? Okay, so for this question, what does it mean by recent times? Okay, well this text actually deals with several hundred years of history, going back to the 1600s. So recent times could possibly mean 20, 30, 40, 50 years. If you're looking at a long period of time, such as 300-400 years, then 2 or 3 decades would count as the recent times. Alright, so the fishing export industry has reduced. It's got smaller. What's caused this? Why? Okay, let's go down and have a look. Okay, so this one we're in the first paragraph. Okay. The dwindling of fish populations has diminished this once great trade. Diminished, decreased, got smaller. Okay, so this is your answer. Dwindling, similar meaning to diminishing, getting smaller. Okay. Question 2. Alright, remember up in task 1, we had apart from, which meant we were looking for one thing, we weren't looking for the general conditions. Well, here's another thing that you can often see. Other than. This means the same as apart from. Look, we've got another apart from down there in question 4. So other than improvements to the transportation network, what other factor enabled Ontario farmers to overcome the loss of competitive edge in the grain industry? So our answer doesn't include transportation, because we're looking for an other reason. Okay? So this is not going to be part of our answer. Okay, so what is the answer? Okay, here we go. When lower cost Western grains, okay, the grain industry, so we're in the right place here, eroded Ontario's competitive edge in field grains. Okay, so the Ontario area, which we also saw in the question. Okay, farmers took advantage of improvements in transportation. Okay, that's the other reason, the one we're not going to include in our answer, and refrigeration technology to launch a successful trade in live beef, cheese and other. Okay, so they did this successfully, which meant they didn't suffer from the problem in field grains. Alright, so our answer is refrigeration technology. Okay, so that, not transport. Okay, grain industry, Ontario. Okay. What has been the driving force behind Canadian industrialization throughout history? Okay, so we're looking for something relating to all of the time period that is discussed in this text. Okay, let's go and have a look for the answer. Okay, in all periods, so in the question we've got throughout history, in all periods, most Canadians work to provide goods and services for consumption in local markets. Indeed, the early appearance of manufacturing to meet local needs contributed to a powerful and relentless pattern of Canadian industrialization. So, okay, this is our answer. This is also an answer. Forgot to underline these earlier. So, 2 possible things here. We've got the idea of actually meeting the needs of the people who live in Canada. So, dealing with what the local people needs. Okay, so not looking at other countries, but looking at what they needed. So, one good answer, another good answer. Okay, if you write that whole sentence out, that's no problem. You get a point for that. Okay, so that's question number 3. Oh, lots of going up and down here. Alright, where are we? Question 4. Okay, remember this. Apart from decreasing transport costs, why else did American industry negatively impact on the growth and diversification of Canadian industry. Okay, so decreasing transport costs was one reason, but we're not interested in this. We're looking for another different reason. Let's have a look. Okay. Okay. A steady decline in the transportation cost of importing to Canada. Okay, so that's the reason that we don't need to put in our answer. And the close proximity to Canadian consumers of the US industrial heartland slowed the expansion and diversification. So this is where we get the negative impact part of the question. Okay, because these aren't positives, they're negatives. So the close proximity to Canadian consumers of the US industrial heartland. So the area where most US industry takes place is close to Canadian consumers. Okay, so it's not a big distance to travel to provide the goods. All right, so you have to be careful here, because if that's part of if you include that in your answer, it's wrong, because we're asking you not to use that. We're only asking you for the other reason. Okay, so be very careful when you're doing this. Okay, question 5. While I'm down here, I won't scroll back up to the question. Let's have a look. Here's question 5. Okay, so I'll read the question out. What is one of the reasons that the 1896 policy of favouring trade with the British Empire was eventually abandoned? So this is another one where a lot of the information for the question's in one paragraph, but you don't actually find your answer until you get to the next paragraph. Okay, so this policy started after the election in 1896, and it continued. Okay, nevertheless, so here we go. So eventually it was going to fail. Why? Okay, so you've got a description of what it was and then why it failed. So you've got one possible answer, another possible answer, and there we go, abandonment. So we've got abandon in the question, so you should be able to use this word and this date to find the right place. And remember, you're not describing what it was, you're saying why it was abandoned. Okay, so don't worry about there being a bit of a gap between when you first see the information and when you get to the answer. Okay, the ELAE, this is careful reading. You're going to have to sort of find some information in one paragraph and then jump forward and actually find your answer maybe in the next paragraph. So don't worry if you see that and you think, oh no, the answer must be in this sentence. Sometimes you're going to have to read 2, 3, 4 sentences on to be able to get your answer. Okay, I'll take another short break and then we'll get back with the synthesis task.